How's it going, guys? I've been meaning to make this video, but I just been busy and a little bit lazy on my part. But I did have a baby back in October, so I have a newborn, and I feel like I can catch a little bit of a break for being a little lazy with YouTube. Anyways, that's not the case. Now I like to talk about why I walked away from the left. I haven't always been where I'm at politically. I just started paying attention to politics until within the last 4 years, for obvious reasons. But growing up, I've always known that Democrats were the home team, and that Democrats are who we're going to vote for and who we're destined to vote for. My family were all Democrats. My community, a large majority of them, 99 out of 100 were Democrats, and my teachers, my classmates, everything. It was all blue, and I didn't care all the way up until like my freshman year of college. I just turned 18. Obama is up for re-election against Mitt Romney, and I didn't care. I was sitting next to this guy, and I remember him going off about if a Republican, won the presidency or the president-elect bid, that America would have 4 straight years of war. And so his idea was that he was going to drop out of college and he was going to enlist into the military because he wanted to get proper training and be ready for war, because World War III was going to break out, and that our generation would get drafted and just kind of thrown into the battlefield, this and that. And that was his mindset. He was trying to convince me, like, come on, dude, we're going to drop out tomorrow. We're going to listen to the military. And I was like, no, I don't know, dude. I don't care. I don't follow politics. It's not a big deal to me. So I didn't care who won. And Obama ends up, winning his re-election. And I remember thinking, regardless of my knowledge in politics, that Obama was the greatest thing to happen to America. I didn't pay attention to it at all, but I still had this thought process that Obama was the best thing to happen. Obama was the best thing to happen to America, and that we should all be grateful. But 2 things popped up. 2 things, made me question. Wait a minute, a little bit with the Democratic Party. Didn't completely change my mind, but it didn't make me question. The first was when Obama demonized the police. He demonized the police, and he encouraged his American citizens to fight back and resist the police. When that happened, I remember watching, I think it was TV or something. I remember hearing the speech and how everybody praised him for this speech. They praised him for encouraging minorities and or Black Americans to fight back against police. It's for the injustices and this and that. And I remember thinking, like, wait, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't sound like something you should do, is encourage your people to resist, those who enforce the law. It was counterproductive, and I also believe that's where the root is for all this hate that we have, and the level of division that's been established between people and the police. It all goes back to that. And then there was that. I didn't like that. It didn't sit well with me. The next thing was actually brought up by my brother, who, again, is a lifelong Democrat. It surprised me. He pointed it out, and he was like, he was talking about how he was disappointed in the response, or I should say the lack thereof of a response, and the protests that were going on in the Dakota Access Pipeline. If you don't remember that was when a bunch of, all these Native American tribes came together and stood in solidarity to protest the Dakota Access Pipeline. Obama did nothing. It was a moment where all these Native Americans were being, sprayed with tear gas and attacked with attack dogs and beaten by police, or beaten by this and that, and the media never covered it, and Obama never did anything about it. All the information that was given out was about people who were there and relatives or friends that we had out there, and they were relaying this information back, and Obama did absolutely nothing. This was at the very end of his presidency. It was around the same time as his antics, where he was taking the mic, and his whole iconic mic drop that everybody loved. That was on TV, whereas the Dakota Access Pipeline wasn't in it. That made me really question. I thought this guy was the president that was the savior for all minorities, but here he is having fun at the end of his presidency when Native Americans were being tortured and during the Dakota Access Pipeline protests. And yeah, it was ridiculous. But he wins his Trump and Clinton are having their campaign and their election night, and this is when you can't avoid politics. It didn't matter who you were, as long as you had social media, you had access to a TV, you had access to news, or access to anything. You watched basketball or football. Celebrities were giving their input. The media did their job. They put this political race in your face, whether you wanted it or not. It was unavoidable. And the media did their job with me. I hated Trump. I absolutely hated his guts. I hated the way he spoke. I hated what he spoke about. I hated how he demonized women, or I would say demonized women. He subjected women to this. They were objects. This and that. I had all these thoughts, and it was all stemmed. It all rooted and stemmed back to my hatred for Trump. The media did their job. At this point, I figured I better vote. I should vote. I didn't vote for Obama or Romney, so this time around, I better vote. And I knew I wasn't going to vote for Trump. So I didn't even look in that direction. I didn't look at their policies. I didn't look at his policies. I didn't look at the platform. I didn't look at anything. I just knew I hated this guy, and I wasn't going to vote for him. Then I looked at Clinton. Luckily I actually looked in that direction. I actually started reading about it, and I realized that, whoa, this platform isn't really the same as mine. I don't really feel the same as this platform or the party or the person and what she had to say or she had to offer. But, more on that later. We'll talk about the platforms later. I figure I better vote third party. That's the only logical sense for me. And at this point, 4 years later, I'm working in a school, and my coworkers. This is also where I developed my love for civil discourse. Oh man, working in a school, I had some of the best educated discussions with other teachers and my coworkers, regardless of their political beliefs. But the question always came up: who were you going to vote for? I was asked, and this and that. But I was asked who would I vote for, or who I'm going to vote for, and I told them that I don't think I plan on voting, but if I do, I'm going to vote third party. And when I would immediately say that I'm going to vote third party, man, their facial expression changed to why? It was immediate questioning. Why? Why are you going to vote third party? If you vote third party, you're inadvertently voting for Trump. Don't you know that a third party vote is a vote for Trump? What are you thinking? You need to vote for Hillary. If we all vote for Hillary, Hillary's going to beat Trump. This and that. And then they went on and on and on and on. 9 out of 10 of them. I want to say all my coworkers were like that. But they questioned why I was voting third party. And in the end, I ended up not voting. I decided not to vote. And so 2 presidential races and I still don't vote. And election night, Trump wins the president-elect bid. And I think, oh shit, no, America, we fucked up. We put this guy who is a racist, who is a sexist, in the White House. What are we thinking, America? We messed up. That was my absolute thought process. Seeing that he won the president-elect, my stomach dropped, my heart sank, and I just remember thinking, we're screwed. I hated it. Day or two goes by, and I start to think, the best thing I can do is give this guy a chance. He's not president yet. He has a clean slate. Why the hell not? Inauguration comes, and my thought process is still the same. Might as well give this guy a chance. Can't hate him for something he hasn't done yet. Whatever. And it didn't get better. It honestly did not get better. I'm trying to give this guy a chance. I hate him already. And I immediately hate him some more because, again, with Obama, the Dakota Access Pipeline, he did nothing. Native Americans were, suffering out there, and he did absolutely nothing. Here comes Trump after his inauguration. I think it was within the first month or two, Trump pushed through it, or he executed a lot of these executive orders. And one of these executive orders was to push through with the Dakota Access Pipeline. At least he addressed it. But he didn't address it in the way that I wanted, or any of the Native American community wanted him to address it. He just pushed through with the Dakota Access Pipeline and completely pushed Native Americans aside, and I hated it. Man, I remember already hating him and just hating him even more, just being boiled with so much rage and hate towards this guy. And it wasn't a good look for him. It wasn't a good way to start his presidency from a Native American's perspective. His presidency continues, and there's certain small things where I'm starting to realize that Facebook isn't putting out the whole story. the news, TV is not really saying a lot of things. You know, they're not saying, or they'll say something, but they won't say a lot about it. It was weird. So it caught my attention. And one of the big things that stood out to me was the kids in cages. I immediately hopped on that bandwagon. I talked about how this guy was a racist and he was locking up kids in cages and separating them from their parents, and he was doing this on purpose. And he did it because he loved it. He loved torturing minorities. And somebody from the right actually responded with nothing. They didn't respond with hate or their own words or this and that trying to demoralize me. They actually responded with an article. And in this article, after reading it, it was about how the pictures of the kids in cages, the pictures of the facilities, the pictures of the cages and their living conditions, and the kids that were there, those pictures all came from the Obama administration. And in the article itself, the photographer actually comes forth and says that, yes, I did take these pictures. And it sucked. It was a bitter pill to swallow. It's not what I wanted to hear. And then I started making up excuses for it. I was like, no way. Trump had to have paid this guy off. Yeah, I had to have paid off this photographer and put his reputation on the line. And that's the only way that this could be a win for Trump. This is the only way that Obama could do something negative was if Trump paid him off. And I didn't want to believe it. Again, like I said, there are all these small things that are popping up where I was realizing that, the media is not saying the full story. Or, they're twisting small details so that it fits their narrative. And that's when I started to begin to question things and start reading about it more before I start ranting about it. It was already embarrassing to rant about the kids in cages, then have somebody put an article in my face that shows I was absolutely wrong. So yeah, that's when I really start to do my own reading before I rant about anything. The incident that really pulled me out of the Democratic Party and put me in this neutral zone was the incident with Nick Sandman and Nathan Phillips up in Washington. I remember coming home from work and my wife was like, "Babe, did you hear about the kids wearing MAGA hats, all the white kids wearing MAGA hats, and they go and mob this elderly Native American man who's playing his drum, and he was just minding his own business, and they mobbed him. One of them looked him in, nose to nose, and he's just laughing at him, staring him in the face while his friends make these war chants in the background. And just hearing that pissed me off. It just triggered me and filled me with more rage and more hate. And then I researched the video. I see the video for myself. And again, in the comments, somebody posted a link to another video. And in that video, or in that comment, they talked about they mentioned how, watch this video. This is the full video before the media takes it down, then before the media manipulates it. Here's the full video. So I followed the link, and it was timestamped in the comments about, where certain things were happening. And the timestamp you wanted to see was around like the 50-something mark, I think. It was late in the video, though. And the video, that part starts out, you see Nathan Phillips playing his drum, you see people following him. And in the background, you hear a group of people from the left saying these disgusting racist slurs, these racist words. It was something I would never say. I don't hate anybody. And this is where I committed to the idea, or I truly believe the fact that, the left was rooted in hate. I saw instances where, their motives weren't pure, their motives weren't good, and that they had used violence and hate to push these motives. But I didn't want to fully commit to this belief. And then seeing this video of these people who are leftists, and they're saying these disgusting things to these kids because they have MAGA hats on, saying things like future school shooters and other disgusting things. They provoked the confrontation. Keep in mind, it's not Nathan Phillips and it's not his followers, but it's another leftist group in the background saying these disgusting things. And so, yeah, Nathan Phillips is walking and he's playing his drum, but the background is the one that causes this confrontation. So Nathan Phillips walks up to these kids. Nathan Phillips himself walks up to these kids as he's playing his drum, and he's singing, and that's when Nick Sandman and his friends, they get up and Nick Sandman stands his ground and just looks him, face to face. He says nothing. He does nothing. He doesn't physically do anything to Nathan Phillips. He's just standing there, and he still has this punchable, ugly smug on his face. Whether Nick Sandman was at fault or not, he had this punchable face. You couldn't deny that. But so he's got this mug on his face, and Nathan Phillips is playing his drum. And after stepping back and analyzing the video, I learned a couple things. It's nothing like what the media showed. It's nothing like what Facebook posted. It's nothing like what my friends were sharing. It's nothing like what people were talking about. Nick Sandman did not mob this guy. They did not crowd him. They did mock him with war. His friends did mock him with war chants, and he did stare him down. But whatever. I honestly don't care. It's not a big deal. It's only a big deal if you emotionally get invested and you get offended, and that hurts my feelings. That's about the worst that those kids did. It was with those war chants. But yeah, in the Facebook and the media, the news, Washington Post all said that Nick Sandman and his friends mobbed this elderly Native American man for playing the drums. But that's nothing like what had happened in the video. That was all provoked by individuals in the back saying racist slurs to these kids who are wearing MAGA hats. The white kids wearing MAGA hats. And Nathan Phillips himself walked up to the kids playing his drum. And it was a bitter pill to swallow, but that's when I realized, this was an absolute lie. That's when I stepped into this zone of, this neutral zone. I no longer wanted to be a part of them. I no longer wanted to be a part of this, the left. And I wasn't going to commit to the right. This is the group. This is the right was the side that hated people. They were racist. They were sexist, and they hated people for. They hated the gay community. They hated all this, and they were the party of hate. So I put myself in this neutral zone, and then I started to analyze both, in depth more. And then that's when I came to the conclusion that the left is just full of hate. The left pushed all of their policies, their beliefs, their ideologies. They pushed all this with hate and violence. We see the obvious examples of violence with Antifa and Black Lives Matter and what they're doing to their communities, using violence to get their point across. That's the definition of a terrorist organization. You're using violence to push a political agenda. I don't know what defines more of a terrorist organization than that. So this is my conclusion. The left was motivated by hate, or motivated and expressed their motives through hate, and expressed their motives through violence. Not only did they express these motives in this fashion, but they did this and collected followers through this victim mentality. If you were a minority, you were a victim, and you were a victim of white men who lived 150 to 500 years ago. Everything that they did is why you are you today. Why you have a single mother in the household. Why you have high crime rate here. Why this and why that. It all leads back to white men white men. We should hate white men today. We should hate white people today. We should hate men today. We should hate all the people on the right because of what their ancestors did so many years ago. And yeah, so like I said, the left encouraged this victim mentality, and I did not want to stand by that. I firmly believe that you can be successful and you have a equal opportunity to the pursuit of happiness. But the left didn't encourage that. They made you believe that if you did not succeed, if you did not become who you wanted to be, or if you were just held back, it's because you were a minority, it's because you were a victim, and you should use that victim mentality to fuel your hate for the right, and we should attack them. And that's really when I realized I'm not going to associate with the left. I do not want to be a part of the group who is fueled by hate, fueled by this victim mentality, and they're using it to just push hate and violence. It seemed like so. I became a liberal I grew up as a liberal because I believed that the left was the party that was anti-racism. They weren't sexist. I believe that everything that they believed was the right. The right were the racist. The right were the sexist. And when I analyzed the left, and not only were they opposites, not only were their beliefs opposites, but it seems like they were absolutely inverted. In order to prove that you weren't a racist, in order to prove you didn't, hate minorities and whatnot, you had to hate white people. In order to prove you weren't racist, you had to hate white people. In order to prove that you weren't a sexist, you had to hate men. And you got bonus points, super bonus points if you hated straight white men. That proved that you stood with the gay community. If you hated straight white men, you got extra bonus points for all of that. And that's when I realized, these motives are not only not only are their beliefs opposite of me believing that they were anti-racist, but it was absolutely inverted. You had to hate in order to prove your allegiance to the left. I just completely removed myself from that. I didn't want to be associated with hate and violence. I don't hate anybody. I don't hate anybody for their race. I don't hate anybody for what their ancestors did. I agree what their ancestors did was disgusting. It was absolutely horrific. But I'm not going to hate who they are today for what their ancestors did. I'll hate them for what they believe in now. Like I'll hate them if they're disgusting people, if they torture people, if they kill people because of their race. I have no problem hating people like that. But I will not hate somebody just because they have ancestors who did disgusting things. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's not the victim mentality that I believe in. It's not the victim mentality that I'm going to encourage my two sons to, believe in and grow up in. So at this point, like I said, I removed myself from the left. I'm in this neutral zone of politics. Then I start to look at my values and my morality as an individual and what I believe in as an individual. And I start to compare it to which party. The first example is I love free speech. I love the First Amendment. Everybody has the right to say whatever they want. The left uses this First Amendment and then they play the victim card when the First Amendment is used against them. Whereas the right encouraged everybody to speak their mind. I believe that racists should have the privilege to say whatever they want to say. I don't care if it's racist. It doesn't affect me. They can say whatever they want. I don't know. It's just I can't imagine having the mindset that anything anybody says is going to affect me so much emotionally that I have to attack them. It's dumb. It's absolutely ridiculous. I love the Second Amendment. Upon learning that the left wants to enforce more gun control, pushing the idea that guns are bad and guns kill people and they're whatever. Upon learning all that, I didn't know. I didn't know. Now that I do know. But yeah, upon learning that the left wanted more gun control, obviously I couldn't stand with them. Third thing would be, I love limited government. I should say that those two things go hand in hand. Limited government and, gun control, or the Second Amendment. Growing up as a Native American, I'm baffled, growing up on the Navajo Reservation, I'm baffled as to why our people continue to vote for these Democrats and pushing their democratic policies, because why would you want more government control? Our ancestors, our history, the Navajos or Native American history in general is the prime example of what happens when you give the government all the control, when you believe the government and trust the government. We'll protect you, we'll have all the guns, we'll take care of you. Our Native American history is the prime example that we should look at as to what happens when we have big government control, when our government is in control of all the guns and they regulate all the guns and this and that. They regulate all the protection. Native Americans know what happens when democratic policies are in place. It baffles me. I do not understand why Native Americans continue to push this or to continue to promote that and vote for people who want these things that murdered thousands upon thousands of our ancestors. It's absolutely ridiculous. Again, I don't know how to I don't know how to absorb all that. Fourth thing, even though I'm half Navajo and half Mexican, my father's Mexican, I still believe in strong borders. I believe in a secure border for the United States. I don't think the wall is a great way to do it. Just it doesn't. It seems way more inefficient than the problems it will solve, or it will slow down and deter. Yeah, it's just too expensive and inefficient. But I still believe in stronger borders. The answer to that, I don't know. But like, a secure border is a good foundation for a healthy nation. And fifth thing is one of the most controversial things is my stance on abortion. Growing up, I didn't care about abortion. I would never do it. I didn't care about abortion. It wasn't a big thing to me. It wasn't until the birth of my first son is that when I became firm on my stance on abortion and in my belief that all life is precious. And it was really because my son was born with spina bifida, and then seeing in the doctor's office, this bubble right here, what he was pointing out, that this is what's wrong with his back, and they told us that your life is gonna be absolutely different. It's gonna change drastically. That had me puzzled right out the gate, because with the introduction of any child, your life's gonna change regardless. But they enforce this idea that you're gonna have to monitor this, you're gonna have to watch this, you're gonna have to look for this, watch for these signs and these symptoms. This is how you're gonna have to take care of his back. They'll take care of his life in this way. It's gonna be an inconvenience on your life. You might want to this and then in the end, the doctor was, he didn't offer it, but he did, mention, don't forget, in a sense, that there's always abortion. And when I think it was a female. Yeah, it was a female doctor. When she brought up, when she brought up this the idea of abortion, because our son who had this birth defect was going to be an inconvenience in our life, it not only did it anger me, but it disgusted me. The thought that I would kill a child just because the child was going to be an inconvenience on my life. It didn't sit right with me. It does not make sense to literally attack the most innocent and vulnerable individuals in society because you believe that they are going to be an inconvenience on your life. It just does not make sense. And so at that point, that's when I became firm on my stance. Like I said before, I didn't care about abortion. I would never do it. I don't care if you do it. This is the point where I became firm on my stance on abortion, that life is precious and we should protect it. So with that said, I really appreciate it. If you made it through this video, if you made it this far into the video, again, I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. I would really, really appreciate it if you would like the video, comment on the video, give me your thoughts and opinions on future videos and what you want me to talk about. Excuse me. And I would really, really, really appreciate it if you would share the video. I'd really, 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 really appreciate it if you would follow me on Twitter and Instagram and on Patreon, all at Romero Clitzo. Everything's going to be in the description below. Until next time, guys, I really appreciate you guys listening to me. See you guys on to the next one.